achieved.
So as we head into 2019, we are seeing a continuation of a trend that started, I believe, in 2018. It could be wrong. It could be 2017. But this champion versus champion title fight. Before, it used to be something special. It used to be something that only came around once in a while, but now we seem to be getting it a little more frequently, and to me, it's taking a little bit of that specialness out of it, that unique nature of the fight. You know, we had Cormier versus Stipe. We had Nunes versus Cyborg. Now we're getting Dillashaw versus Cejudo. I'm trying to remember if we had anybody else take... Yeah, oh, of course, we had Conor originally against Eddie Alvarez, and it's just like, it seems like it's happening more often, and it makes it less fun. And as far as I'm concerned, I want to see champion versus champion when they've been dominant within their divisions. And suddenly it's like, okay, we've got a champion who's defended his title 4, 5, 6 times. No one can touch him. Now he's going up to challenge for the title above him against another very dominant champion. But as in this case, we have Henry Cejudo, who is yet to defend his title. He is the second most noteworthy champion in his division's history, taking on TJ Dillashaw, who has defended his title once again. And Dillashaw is a different type fighter. He defended his title once, and he's coming down a division to defend. You know, with Cormier versus Stipe, yeah, Stipe had a good roll and Cormier went up. That was, okay, that was admissible. But again, I want to see, that's the only scenario in which I want to see this happen. We're out of title challengers, or this champion has overcome every single obstacle put in his way. Let's give him another obstacle to go up and challenge in a champion versus champion fight. I really hope we see this cool down, because I really think it stalls out divisions. Right now you've got a division full of bantamweights who are saying, well, and there's a lot of good bantamweights right now. I've been working my way towards the title shot, and now my champion is not even defending his title. He's going down to fight at 125. And of course, the flyweight division's in flux as it is. But had it been a regular division, you have a bunch of flyweights, and you still do. And guys like especially Joseph Benavidez, who are saying, and to a lesser extent maybe Jussier Formiga, are saying, look, I've been plugging away, trying to earn my shot at the championship, and here comes a guy from a division above who has yet to fight at flyweight, challenging for the title. Now, of course, the state of the flyweight division puts another spin on things, but still, you get where I'm coming from. I don't like these champ versus champion fights until the circumstances are correct. And I would rather see, one every couple of years as opposed to 2 or 3 a year. Let's get some contender bouts going. Let's get some progression through the rankings. Let's get some title shots going, and let's see how this thing plays out. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 143, also known as UFC Fight Night on ESPN +1, I believe, going down on January 19th. It's the first event of 2019, so welcome to 2019. Very excited about it. And if you've been over to my website, kamikazeoverdrive.net, you'll notice we have a brand new look, new logo, new website layout. It is still a work in progress, people. So if there's any issues, I apologize. By all means, please message me if you see anything that you're not sure about or isn't working. We're going to do things a little bit differently, but try and keep the same approach to how we do prelims and bet packs and everything else. So again, but I will develop things, and I might try things that don't work, and I might see other things that do work. In addition to the new website, I'm also looking to maybe add some content writers. Not so much prediction writers, but individuals who maybe want to write an article once in a while about the state of anything. It could be the state of a division. It could be talking about a specific fighter profile. It could be any number of things. So if you're interested in something like that, and again, it doesn't pay anything, it's just a hobby. But if you're interested in anything like that, by all means, contact me through the contact page on my website and tell me what you're thinking, or through Twitter or through Facebook, whatever. Tell me what you're thinking, and we can go from there. Speaking of my website, the bet packs are once again for sale for $15 for the entire bet pack. I'll be breaking that down. My preliminary picks, as always, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. And hey, I am coming off of the worst showing. I didn't officially go back and look. I'm just going to call it the worst night of my 2019 year, and it was atrocious, to say the least. It was horrendous. I did not do well by any stretch of the imagination. I really struggled, and yeah, I went 3-10 overall. I got one fight right in the main card. I lost a number of fights. Some of them were upset, some of them were setbacks, some were just miscalculations on my part. I ultimately came up short of my goal. I had to win 7 fights to hit 300 for the first time in my predicting career, where I got 300 right in a calendar year. I finished here with 296, which was my second best, 299 being my best. I'll take that as a win. I still have one of the best years I've ever had predicting, won the most money I've ever won as a bettor. Also, my bet packs produced as high as they've ever produced. It was a good year. We're going to build on that going forward in 2019. And again, we get an opportunity to get off to a good start and see if we can make that charge towards another successful season. On that note, let's get to that first main card prediction. Fight number 1 of the main card takes place in the UFC's light heavyweight division and features the former title challenger and 12th ranked Glover Teixeira with a current record of 27 wins and 7 losses, taking on Karl Baby K Roberson with a current record of 6 wins and 1 defeat. Now, Roberson is stepping in to replace Glover's former opponent, Ion Cutelaba, on roughly a week's notice. And this is the second consecutive fight in which Glover had an opponent set up and then a very late notice replacement opponent stepped in. The last time it was supposed to be Ilir Latifi. Corey Anderson stepped in, defeated Glover, and kind of was a big setback for Teixeira in that scenario. As I said, he lost that Anderson decision. It was not a great performance, and he's alternated wins and losses over his last 6 fights. Looking at Roberson now, he's 2-1 in the UFC with wins over Darren Stewart and Jack Marshman. Sandwiched in between, he has a submission defeat against Carlos Ferreira, which is his only career loss. Now, Roberson has fought primarily all of his 3 UFC fights at middleweight, 185 pounds. His UFC contenders bout, or Tuesday night contenders bout, took place at light heavyweight. He also fought there on the independent scene. So this late notice will be aided by the fact that he doesn't have to cut nearly as much weight to get down to 205 as he would to get down to 185 pounds. He will be the slightly smaller man, Glover, an inch taller, 2-inch reach advantage. It's also worth noting the Brazilian is 11 years older than Roberson. Now, the first question we have to ask when we look at Glover is he finished? He has really struggled with consistency of late. He looked good against Misha Cirkunov in a very short fight, but he looked very flat against Corey Anderson. And Corey Anderson, while he did have vulnerability, stylistically, he matched up well with Glover when you really look back, and he is fighting very well coming off that Ilir Latifi. One of the few fights I got right last show, coming off the Ilir Latifi upset. Now, does the short notice circumstance impact Glover here? Cutelaba, when you look at him, he's a capable wrestler that likes to brawl. For Roberson, he is a kickboxer. Stylistically, this is probably a better matchup for Teixeira, even though the other fight would have been awfully fun. So far, when you really look at things, the key to beating Glover, and there's a couple of them, but the one that's been utilized more often than not has been wrestling. Corey Anderson landed 7 takedowns. Go back to Phil Davis, he landed 9. John Jones had success landing 3. We've seen guys wrestle Glover and win fights as a result. The other guys that beat him, Rumble, just unearthly power knocked him out, and Alexander Gustafsson broke him over 4+ rounds of action and eventually stopped him. Those are life-altering losses, soul-altering losses, if you will, but Glover's a tough fucker and he keeps coming back. So then you look at Karl Roberson. Which route is he more likely to take? He has 3 wins by submission, including his debut win. He landed 1 takedown in that fight. He landed 2 takedowns in the Jack Marshman fight, scored key top position time in that matchup, and ground out, especially the 3rd round where he was injured, to get the win there. But when you look at Marshman and when you look at Stewart, those guys are vulnerable defensively when it comes to their counter wrestling and their grappling, and Roberson was able to capitalize on it. He is not a world beater when it comes to the ground game either. On the other side, he KO'd his opponent on the Contender Series, who was actually the favorite in that matchup, pretty impressively. But it was one of those fluke elbows on the inside put him down. He does not have the type of power that Anthony Rumble Johnson offers. So can he go the accumulation route? When you look at his record, he only has 2 fights that have gone beyond the opening round, his last fight and his debut. So going deep into fights and putting large volumes of offense on his opponent, not really his forte. He's a good striker, but he's not going to pile it up like Gus can. When you look at Glover, he's a dangerous boxer, but Roberson does have that route to use his kicking offense to keep him out of range. And as far as the skill gap on the feet, the gap isn't that big. They do different things well, and they both can be effective in their own approaches. And I don't know if Glover has the edge on the feet or not, and even if he does, the gap's not that big. What we look at Glover is when he's not faced with top-level wrestlers, guys that can defend his takedowns or go offensive with their takedowns, Glover's a pretty good wrestler himself, and he's a very good grappler. And he has a very strong submission game. He finished Misha Cirkunov on the mat. He scored 3 takedowns and scored a lot of top control time against Jared Cannonier. He had 5 takedowns against OSP, kept him on the ground, beat him up, and eventually submitted him. You get the point of what I'm saying here. Roberson struggled in the grappling department against Ferreira. He got taken down with relative ease, he struggled off his back, offered almost nothing, and then got submitted. The short notice and extra weight that Roberson's going to be carrying around for this matchup and the lack of long fight experience don't bode well for a guy who's been outside of the first round in very few fights. Especially if he doesn't have that one-punch power, he's going to need to really put up a lot of volume on Glover Teixeira over a couple of rounds. Unless Glover is completely shot, and I don't believe he might be on his way, he is on his way to the down slope of his career. But I don't think he's completely shot, but unless he is, he should be able to take Roberson down with relative ease. Glover should be able to grind him out or possibly finish him late if he can wear him down over a prolonged period with top control, or he could also finish him early. He's got the ability on the ground to finish him. Glover likes those chokes. Look for him to use that ground and pound to force Roberson to roll over. Glover will take his back and lock in that rear naked choke. And my prediction is Glover Teixeira to beat Karl Roberson by submission. The second fight on our main card takes place in the women's flyweight division as 12-gauge Paige VanZant, 7 wins and 4 losses, takes on the 4-4 Rachael Ostovich. Now, this is really a showcase fight. Let's call it what it is. We are moving to a new network. We have 2 very good-looking girls. And don't get me wrong, they're good fighters. They would kick the shit out of me and everybody else listening to the show probably. But they are 2 very good-looking girls, and the UFC is looking to just throw something else out there that's a little special for people to watch. So again, don't let me, at any stretch of the imagination, take away from the fact that these 2 are capable of, but I really believe that's what we were looking at when we see these 2 girls paired up. Now, Paige VanZant, she made a 125-pound debut in her last fight and lost a decision to Jessica Rose Clark. She is 1-3 in her last 4 fights and hasn't fought in a year. Not exactly a great spot. For Ostovich, she won her divisional debut after a 1-1 stint on The Ultimate Fighter. She was then submitted by Montana De La Rosa in her next fight. It was a very entertaining back-and-forth bout. Overall, she's 4-4, and she's won just 2 of her last 5 bouts. And 2 of her 4 victories that both went the distance, split decisions. So that's a little concerning that she's going to struggle to put fighters away when she has the opportunity. Now, for Paige, she moved up from 115 pounds. The cut was getting too hard for her. She is 1 inch taller than Ostovich. She'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, and she is the younger fighter by 3 years. Now, Ostovich is dealing with the distraction and stress of her domestic assault case with her husband. And I believe he's being charged with attempted murder. That has to be a distraction. But again, the fight's still on. There was talk of canceling it, but she's still going forward with it. When you look at her pro career, 2 wins by submission. Her lone win in The Ultimate Fighter came by submission. She comes from a high school wrestling background, and in her debut, she shot early in that matchup. She recognized her strength and her opponent's weakness, and she went for it. She's very good at countering takedown attempts by scrambling, and more often than not will go for back control. And we've all seen her transition. She transitioned to an armbar in her debut victory, which was really well done. She has decent takedown defense. She's got some good core strength. She's relatively strong in the position, but once De La Rosa put her on the mat, she was in some trouble. Again, wrestlers don't like to be on the ground, and De La Rosa was able to capitalize on Ostovich late in that fight and got the submission in the final 10 seconds. Ostovich is a very good scrambler. Again, she countered some of De La Rosa's takedown attempts by looking for the back and rolling into an armbar, and again, had a couple opportunities there. At the same time, she will lose position if put in a tough spot and tries to go for something she doesn't get. On the feet, she has a decent right hand. She'll step in. She was struggling to find range against a much longer opponent, and she was stuck in the end of her strikes at times. She does her best work when she gets in and throws with combinations and when she's overly aggressive. Now for Paige, she has struggled with top level competition. She got a bit of a push because, again, she's a good-looking girl. She was very marketable. The UFC pushed her up there. She had the big fight with Rose. I remember everybody's all over Paige. I had Rose from the get-go, and Rose finished her very impressively. But Paige, she struggled with top-level competition. She's, just hasn't had the focus I want to see of late. She broke her right arm in her last fight, which is certainly a concern, but she needs to get back on track here. Offensively, she likes to be creative on the spot when she's grappling or striking. She's unorthodox. She can be a little erratic at times. That jumping switch kick, if you will. She throws a spinning back fist, again, very unorthodox, very aggressive no matter what she's doing. When she fought Clark, who was using more traditional striking, she was getting cracked with counters every time she moved in. Now, the thing Paige does, and she does it almost in every one of her fights, and a lot of times it costs her, and the talent she faces gets better and better, it's going to cost her more and more. She likes that headlock hip toss throw. And a lot of times what happens is she loses position, gives up her back, and suddenly what was an offensive opportunity turns into a fight-changing, possibly fight-ending scenario for her. She's also against Jess. She struggled with Jess's more technical grappling. She was caught in an early arm triangle in that fight, standing, got taken down. She was in big trouble in that spot. She spent a lot of time on her back against Clark early in that fight. And while her hips, she showed how strong she was in the clinch, countering a takedown attempt and putting her down. Again, she was in serious trouble. And again, she got on top, but Jessica Rose was able to rotate, counter out of the position, got on top, eventually went for another triangle attempt and nearly had her. Again, Clark in that fight seemed to be focusing on the grappling aspects and being a more technical grappler, and it was working for her. For Paige in this fight against Ostovich, she needs to use movement speed and her cardio to outwork Ostovich. Her cardio is very good as long as she's not being really, really pushed and beaten up. I'm not sure she can win this fight without her grappling. She's not the world's best striker, and while she does some flashy stuff that could result in a win, And we've seen her, the knockout again, who's at Beck Rawlings, a fight I think she was losing, so she scored the knockout. She's not a consistent enough striker to win solely on her striking, unless she simply overwhelms her opponent. I like Ostovich's wrestling and opportunistic counter game on the mat to be very effective here, especially if PVZ looks for that counter throw. If she looks for that, Ostovich loves getting to the back, and she's going to counter out of it and get right into that position. Paige tends to make mistakes on the mat, and that's going to cost her position. I think Ostovich is going to land some hard strikes on the feet as well, step in and really mix it up, and eventually they're going to go to the mat, and I think Rachael's going to surprise some people, and my prediction is Rachael Ostovich to defeat Paige VanZant by submission. Moving right along, we're in the UFC's flyweight division as the former title challenger and number 2 ranked Joseph Benavidez, 25-5-0, who took part in the first ever title fight in the division, takes on the 8th ranked Dustin Ortiz, 9-7-0, one of the few top ranked fighters who has yet to challenge for the title. Now, this is actually a rematch from a 2014 bout. Benavidez won that matchup by decision, part of a 6-fight winning streak that eventually got him back to a title fight against Demetrius Johnson. Benavidez recently lost a return bout at UFC 225 to Sergio Pettis. It was coming off a long layoff. He then rebounded with a TKO victory over Alex Perez, who was a fighter who had showed some promise and then put an impressive winning at Shorty Torres together. Benavidez knocking him out actually twice with some referee fault in that matchup. I had Perez, unfortunately, so it didn't go well. For Ortiz, he has strung together a trio of wins, including a pair of knockout wins and an upset over Alexander Pantoja, and arguably a win here over Benavidez, if the division were to continue, could line Ortiz up for a shot at the title, because that's, 3 big wins, a 4th over a top contender would be huge for him. Physically, Ortiz 1 inch taller, same reach. Ortiz is the younger fighter by 4 years. Now, looking back at their first fight, the strikes significantly favored Benavidez, 94-37. Each man landed 2 takedowns, but ultimately it was the striking that decided and gave Benavidez the victory. Benavidez in that matchup was landing short strikes, straight strikes that were really getting to the target much quicker than what Ortiz was offering. He was throwing big windups, coming up short often, trying to counter and just, not in a good position to land offense. And he was having limited connections, and that's where Ortiz just couldn't match the offense of Benavidez. Joe was having a lot of success going to the body as well and really working Ortiz over in that position and just being the more effective striker. Ortiz did land a couple of takedowns, which is essential to his success, but he didn't do enough with the position. And actually, Joe, when he landed his takedowns, he did a better job of winning the round and then landing a takedown late to seal that round in his favor. Now, as I said, Ortiz's pro success comes primarily on the strength of his wrestling game, excluding his recent knockouts, which are kind of surprising. His other 6 UFC wins, 23 combined takedowns, averaging 3.8 per fight. So if he's not finishing a fight quickly, he needs to get his wrestling involved and be successful with it. Ortiz, again, he needs a heavy dose of takedowns and top control, not just takedowns, but takedowns and top control in order to win fights. And he couldn't get Joe down in the last fight, and he couldn't do enough with it. And that's what I already said, and that's something that is, can he change something up here, and has he adapted enough as a fighter to make an alteration here? Benavidez has a 65% takedown defense. Only a couple of fighters have had success taking him down, one of them obviously being Dominic Cruz back in the day, Demetrius Johnson being another, but it's not easy, and it's not easy to keep him down either. If Dustin can't take Joe down, he needs to utilize his striking to win this fight. And he has shown power of late, and we've seen Benavidez hurt in a couple of fights, but it's difficult to suggest Ortiz is going to knock him out. Ortiz averages between 35 and 45 significant strikes per fight when he goes deep into a matchup, usually 15 minutes. Joe tends to average between 55 and 75 strikes in a prolonged bout, including 94 against Ortiz. So again, you look at where Ortiz's ceiling is as far as his offensive output is concerned, and a lot of those totals come with takedowns as well. And it's below where Joe's floor is as far as what his offensive output is. Now, Benavidez is getting older, and a lot of people, maybe including myself, were overlooking him in his last fight. Again, we could see him, just like Chad Mendes, come back from a layoff, have success, next fight out, that's when he gets caught. Despite Ortiz's recent success, I don't believe Dustin has actually developed much from the last time he fought Joseph Benavidez. Look for Benavidez to utilize that superior volume, routinely beat Ortiz to the punch, and defend takedowns when Ortiz looks to get in on the inside. The only way Ortiz wins this fight, as far as I'm concerned, is if he hurts Joe and finishes him, or hurts him to the point where Benavidez can never really recover and get it going again. Joe recognizes this is a huge fight. He is looking to make a case that he deserves a shot at the flyweight title and to keep the division going. I think he puts a strong performance together, and my prediction is Joseph Benavidez to defeat Dustin Ortiz by decision. Now, this fight has the potential to steal Fight of the Night honors. Absolutely do not miss this matchup. It's in the UFC's lightweight division. It's the 15th ranked Gregor the Gift Gillespie, undefeated at 12-0, meets the always exciting Yancy Medeiros, with a current record of 15 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Now, Gillespie is quietly building a case for himself as an elite 155-pound prospect. The guy is 5-0 in the UFC, including 4 consecutive finishes. Now, Medeiros is coming off a very tough loss to Donald Cerrone, which took place at welterweight, suffering a TKO defeat, which snapped his 3-fight winning streak. Yancy, an inch taller, he'll have a 4-inch reach advantage. He's a year younger than Gillespie as well. And as I said, Medeiros is returning from a stint at welterweight. The last time he fought at 155 pounds was 2016, so we'll see how that shows up here. Now, this is a step up for Gregor Gillespie. He's facing an established UFC opponent with solid UFC credentials. And Medeiros, he has some solid wins, and he's got some solid fights. Even guys he's lost to, they're still noteworthy that he's in there going at it with them. Now, Gillespie, he is a talented former NCAA Division I national champion. 17 takedowns over 5 UFC fights, including 7 against Vince Pichel in his last matchup. And one thing with Gillespie, he's not the type of guy who's going to take you down and lay on you. He takes you down looking to finish you every single time. He has excellent timing, ducking under his opponent's offense and putting them down, drives hard in a single leg, and he keeps driving. It's the fact that if he doesn't get that first takedown attempt, it's efforts 2, 3, and 4 to put you down that eventually get you on the mat, and it's exhausting to deal with a guy like this. He's a smothering top game, excellent transitions, passes his opponent's guard with fluidity, very impressively. Look for him to work to mount more often than not, and he will threaten with both strikes and submissions, using one to set up the other. He'll threaten with strikes to make you open something up. He'll look for a submission. If he can't get that, he'll start pounding on you with strikes. His control is the most devastating part of his attack. You don't often hear that, but with Gillespie it is. Once he gets you down, it's very difficult for you to get up, and once he gets you in a dominant position, you're almost stuck there and hope the round, he wears himself out, which hasn't happened yet, or the round expires and you're still going. It opens you up to both damage and exhaustion. Now, Medeiros, he has been taken down in fights before. Both Francisco Trinaldo and Alex Oliveira had success putting him down twice each, but he's got an 83% takedown defense. That's pretty good. But at the same time, he's never really faced a dedicated wrestler like Gregor Gillespie, and that's a huge concern. He does have 4 submission wins. He got Sean Spencer after knocking him down. Similar situation with Joe Proctor, so he can catch submissions if the situation presents himself. And I'd say that's the only way he's catching Gillespie, is if he hurts him and is able to lock up a sub before Gillespie gets his wits about him. He doesn't have an elite guard game. That's certainly an issue there. And so I would say Medeiros wants to keep this fight on the feet. And for Gillespie, his striking is still improving. He throws very hard. He's a compact striker. He knocked out Holbrook in that matchup, but he doesn't want to be in that situation too often. He wants to get his wrestling involved because Medeiros is scrappy. He's dangerous. He throws good volume. It's not amazing. He's not going to overwhelm you like a Diaz where he keeps pumping stuff out, even though, people have drawn comparisons. But it's his ability to keep coming forward and still being there and being tough as fuck. He's a little taller. He has a reach advantage as well. He needs to pump that jab as much as he can and be aggressive and move forward. He's not the same fighter Medeiros I'm talking about now. Not the same fighter when he's defensive, when he's forced to counter, when he's forced to sit back, when he's forced to fight off his back foot. The other problem, though, is when he's aggressive and moves forward, it opens himself up for takedowns, and that's a major concern. Yancy's vulnerable on the feet. His body's open to being taking damage. His chin is not rock solid by any stretch of the imagination. While he did say he's tough as fuck, he can be finished. He's been cracked on multiple occasions, and the cut to 155 pounds certainly seems to diminish him a little bit and diminish his ability to take damage. Yancy's opening could be his cardio. Gillespie's only gone to the 3rd round twice compared to 10 opening round finishes. If Medeiros can make him work hard for early takedowns and control, he could defend in rounds 2 and 3 and start to work towards a stoppage as Gillespie slows down. Gillespie's got good cardio, but again, he could wear down trying, for takedowns, and I've seen him in the past go for takedowns, not get them, and keep going on the regional scene, even when it's not working. If Gregor can land on the feet, he could get a knockout or TKO, but I see him getting the takedown, especially that single leg, working to Yancy's back, and either locking up a submission or landing ground and pound to the finish. My prediction is Gregor Gillespie to defeat Yancy Medeiros by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the heavyweight division as the undefeated former Dallas Cowboy, former pro NFL player, Greg Hardy, 3-0, takes on the returning Alan Pretty Boy Crowder with a current record of 9 wins, 3 losses, and 1 no contest. Now, Greg Hardy, very controversial. Former NFL player, as I mentioned, super athlete, but obviously his domestic assault issues. He's debuting, looking to make an impact in his debut. He had 2 wins in the Contender Series. Then he got to go off and fight in the Extreme Fight Challenge organization before the UFC Fight Night said it's time for you to come up to the big leagues. He also, I think he won 3 fights as an amateur. For Crowder, he has not fought since late 2017, which was his debut. He lost via knockout to Justin Willis. He had won 4 in a row since before that fight, including a Contender Series bout and a fight in Bellator. So the guy's no scrub. Physically, Hardy, 6'5", 265 pounds, and an 80-inch reach. The guy's a behemoth. For Crowder, 6'3", 245 pounds, 76-inch reach. No small cookie by any stretch of the imagination. Crowder's actually the younger man by a year. Hardy sub-30, which is very young for the heavyweight division. Now, is Crowder being led to the slaughter? The UFC is letting Hardy get some wins to develop on the regional scene. They recognize he has a future. He's a big name. He's a monster of a man, and he has much more potential both as a fighter and as a draw than Crowder. That doesn't mean Crowder can't win this fight, but you know what the UFC is thinking. When you look at Hardy's last 3 opponents, they have records of 2-1, 3-1, and 0-2, so combined overall 5-4. It's not like Crowder was fighting world beaters on the regional scene either. His last 3 pre-UFC opponents had a combined record of 11-11, with only one of them over 500, so that tells you a lot there. Now, all Hardy's fights, 6 in total, pro and amateur, done in under a minute. That gives you an idea what we're dealing with here is what he brings to the table. How does he do in minute number 2? That's the first question. How does he do in round number 2? We don't know these things. He is a super athlete. He absolutely is well conditioned. What's his fight IQ like? What's it like when he faces adversity? What's it like when he comes off the stool for that second time? And of course, UFC debut adds to it. Even though the guy's played football in some of the big high-pressure situations that the NFL provides, it's still a different animal here. Now, as far as what he does in the cage, he's very aggressive. 90% of his offense comes from his hands. He will mix in the odd kick or knee, but he wants to move forward. He wants to throw leather. He throws a serviceable left jab, big power in the right, works in an uppercut once in a while, and he just unloads and forces you to cover up where he goes for the kill from that point. He's very quick for a big man. But I did see him taking some shots against one of his opponents who was able to land a few before that he got put down. He looked a little more measured in his last fight, but still a tad wild when opening up and engaging. He's got a good sprawl overall. Takedown offense is decent. He does a good job of putting his takedown defense, putting weight on his opponent. He moved to a better spot, started landing ground and pound that ultimately finished that fight, and he can generate a lot of power from positions that a lot of guys normally don't. Again, there is some concern that pro football players, all that head trauma they've absorbed through their college career, their high school career, pro career, it could leave them vulnerable to being knocked out. We'll see if that is the case. Of course, the heavyweight, anybody can get knocked out at any given time. For Crowder, all 3 of his losses have come by knockout. His only UFC fight ended by knockout against Justin Willis. It's the only guy Willis has knocked out in the UFC in 4 fights. His other 3 fights going the distance. It's also worth noting Crowder was the underdog in his contenders bout. Didn't look that great until his opponent faded, which could be the key here. Survive early, get Hardy as he fades. Crowder has a tendency to move forward into the clinch when he's striking. It puts him in the danger zone. Even though Hardy has a longer reach, the more you move forward, and the more he's going to like that. He fought Willis very close in that matchup, and of course that resulted in him getting hurt and then knocked out. Crowder doesn't appear to have a good wrestling game, which I'm sure the UFC thought about when they scheduled this fight. And I don't think he really has a way, no sharp jab, no big offensive power to really, he's not going to be able to back Hardy up. Crowder is the more experienced and accomplished fighter, and the most by any stretch that Hardy has faced yet. But Crowder doesn't have that solid jab, as I said. He doesn't have any of those things that are going to make Hardy respect him. At heavyweight, Hardy could move forward and do a big shot and get knocked out, but look for Hardy to crash forward, back Crowder up to the cage, throw bombs until he collapses. And my prediction is Greg Hardy to defeat Alan Crowder by knockout. In the main event of the evening, we are in the UFC's flyweight division. I don't know how much longer we'll be able to say that, as the champion, Henry the Messenger Cejudo, 13-2-0, takes on the challenger and reigning bantamweight champion, TJ Dillashaw, with a current record of 17 wins and 3 losses. Now, is this the final flyweight title fight? When I look into the future, I only see one more flyweight fight scheduled beyond this event. And really, it's a shame Demetrius Johnson isn't in this fight and getting this opportunity to really market himself and defend, or even go up and challenge. I don't know, how things could have been different. Either way, very unfortunate. I thought DJ won that last matchup. Either way, it wasn't the case. It's interesting to note that Benavidez is on the same card. He has that close and slightly controversial victory over Henry Cejudo. He would be the logical next fight for Cejudo if both men win this matchup and the division persists on beyond this night. Now for TJ, he has said he's coming to kill the flyweight division. Is that the case here? It seems logical. The bantamweight champion wins the flyweight title. The bantamweight division, the top talent anyway, is assimilated up into the 135-pound division, and we don't see 125 anymore. Is Henry Cejudo, on the flip side, fighting for the 125ers, saying, hey, I'm going to win this fight, I'm going to show we have a relevant spot because we beat the 135-pound champion, and we're going to continue going forward. Now, Cejudo, as I said, he's coming off that narrow victory over Demetrius Johnson, his 3rd straight win after a 2-fight losing skid to Joseph Benavidez and Demetrius Johnson. For Dillashaw, he has won 4 in a row, back-to-back wins for Cody Garbrandt, first winning the title and then defending the title. He also beat John Lineker and Rafael Sunsao. He only has a single defeat in his last 9 matchups, and coming against Dominic Cruz, where he lost his title initially. Physically, TJ 2 inches taller, he'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger fighter, or he's 1 year older. Now, Henry Cejudo's fought at 135 pounds before, so he's dealt with bigger men. TJ, to my knowledge, has never fought 125 pounds. How does that impact him? it looks like the cutting down is making him much smaller. It's not just going to cut 10 pounds of water weight. He looks much smaller in the images. It's noticeable. Cejudo pointed it out. Said he looked like Pee Wee Herman, which is, I don't know if that's exactly the best analogy, but either way. What makes TJ so effective, and is it impacted by this move? Now, at 135 pounds, he moves well, and he can do it for 5 rounds. Does cutting down to 125 pounds, does that impact him? Does it make it too draining for him to do that for 5 rounds? He's also very quick in comparison to a lot of bantamweights. That might no longer be an advantage to him against most flyweights. So Cejudo's not he's fast, but he's not lightning quick fast as far as I'm concerned. He's still a big man for 125 pounds, and that's why he's had problems getting down to this division in previous situations. Now, what should TJ still have on his side? His power should still favor him, especially against smaller men. If he lands, he should be able to put Cejudo down if he connects just right. His size, especially in the wrestling department, could be a huge factor here. I know a lot of people look at technique over size, and Cejudo is an Olympic wrestler. And if Cejudo wants to get the fight there, he has the skills to put TJ down. We'll see if he can. Now, as far as Cejudo we've seen from him recently, in his wins over Wilson Hayes and Demetrius Johnson, he used that karate-style stance, which seemed to throw fighters off. We'll see if he utilizes that here. Now, the unfortunate thing is he was having trouble landing with consistency against Johnson. He actually got outlanded that fight 81-51. That's a problem. Against better competition, his volume range tends to be between 40 and 60 significant strikes. His best came against Benavidez, which was 68. The key so far for Cejudo has been takedowns and top control. That was at least the key against Demetrius Johnson. It really offset DJ's volume. He landed 3 takedowns in that fight, 3 takedowns in his win over Sergio Pettis, 2 against Wilson Hayes, 2 against UCA Formiga. When he fought Joseph Benavidez, though, he attempted 7, landed just 1. So there is a recipe for shutting him down. It could be argued that TJ will have the same wrestling base as Joseph Benavidez coming from this time spent at Team Alpha Male. That's certainly a possibility. Now, if wrestling's a non-factor here, as both men, their skills could cancel each other out, this bout could very well be decided on the feet. TJ, as far as I'm concerned, has a sizable edge in volume. He has passed the 100 strike mark on 5 occasions, including 109 against Dominic Cruz, the very elusive Dominic Cruz. He should also have a power edge. He stopped Cody Garbrandt twice. He stopped Renan Barão twice. He hits harder. He's a bigger physical man. Unless the cut significantly diminishes the cardio of the bantamweight champion, he should be in good shape here. Is his volume going to tail off? That's a possibility. If it doesn't, he's in good shape. Is his durability going to be an issue? If it isn't, he's in good shape. He has the edge in those areas. Cejudo has to find a lot of success with his wrestling here, and against a bigger man, that could be difficult. It could be hard for him not to gas out, especially over 5 rounds if he can't get the finish. Look for TJ to utilize his speed, his movement, and maybe bully Cejudo around a little bit, but more predominantly, he's going to be the better striker, more confident, have more tools, and eventually he's going to go for one of those head kicks against a much shorter opponent, and my prediction is TJ Dillashaw to defeat Henry Cejudo by knockout. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 143. Let's hope to kick off 2019 much better than we ended 2018. I'm very much looking forward to the event, getting things rolling. Again, my preliminary predictions will be available at the new look Kamikaze Overdrive. If you're interested in writing for me, contact me through any of the number of sites I have available as far as my website or anything else. And bet packs are also available. Let's get back on the winning track there. And again, thanks for tuning in, guys. You can subscribe to me on Twitter at KO_predictions. I will talk to you soon. Take care and enjoy the fights.